Channel Cloud and DevOps. Before we can start the DevOps training, we need to understand what is cloud computing. So basically, cloud computing is the framework where an end user can request for computing resources from a provider. So the computing resources may include compute power, it may include network, it may include storage. So all those things can be requested. So any user can request all these resources from the provider, and the provider can provision these resources to the end user on a pay as you go basis. Okay, so for every resource that the end user requests and he uses, he has to pay to the provider. So basically, this concept is known as cloud computing. And the concept of cloud computing is useful when the user does not want to manage the resources, or he does not want to spend upfront capital in investing in the resources. For example, if there is an end user that wants to create a corporation or a company, but to run this company, he would need 100 servers. But to buy 100 servers would be to buy 100 physical servers, in fact, would be very costly. So for that reason, what the end user can do, he can directly request these 100 servers from a cloud provider. So this cloud provider in turn can provide the 100 resources or 100 servers to this end user, and the end user can start his company without even owning a single server. So he can ask the cloud resources for virtual machines or virtual servers. These virtual servers are less costly in comparison to a physical system that you would have bought, and these virtual machines need not be managed directly by the end user. So if anything goes wrong with these virtual machines, it is the job of Amazon or the provider to provide to manage these resources. So that is the introduction to cloud computing. So if we define cloud computing, it is nothing but it is the provisioning of computing resources on a pay as you go model. Computing, let us understand the technologies that enable cloud computing. So basically, when the end user requests for any service, then that service is provided to the end user by the provider through the internet. So basically, even if the end user is in any geographic location, he can access those services and get those services by paying for it. So the backbone of the cloud computing infrastructure is basically internet. And there is one more technology that enables cloud computing, and that is known as virtualization. So now let us understand what is virtualization. So virtualization is basically the concept where you can create isolated environments over the same infrastructure. So basically, if I have a single infrastructure or single hardware, for example, your laptops, and over this laptop, if I want to run a Windows operating system, a Mac operating system, and an Ubuntu operating system, if I want to run them, then how can I do that? Because the overall hardware is same. Can we divide the hardware in such a way that this operating system does not see this operating system, or this operating system does not interfere with this operating system? Yes, that can be done by creating virtual isolations among them. Each of these virtual isolation is known as a virtual machine, and the software that creates the isolation is known as hypervisor. So hypervisor is basically responsible to create these virtualized environments, and through that we can use the same hardware to run multiple instances of operating systems or multiple isolated environments. So how this thing is useful in real world cloud? So in real cloud, when a user requests for some resource, the provider, instead of providing an entire system to him, what he does, he isolates the environment through virtualization and provides only that much amount which is required by the user. For example, if there is another user who requests for some other resource, then also the same hardware can be virtualized to provide another isolated chunk to him. So even if there are two users, they can use the same hardware, and through virtualization, the provider can isolate their environments. For example, this the first user can run a Windows machine while the second user can run a Mac system. So based on this virtualization concept, the provider can accommodate a large number of users, and there is no interference between the two users because they are running two different isolated environments, of course over the same hardware. Some of the advantages of cloud computing. So the first advantage of cloud computing is cost saving. So instead of buying physical systems, an end user can use the virtualized cloud systems and save money in upfront cost management. Second is, if an end user wants to create a system where he does not want to manage the resources, then he can go for cloud systems, as the cloud systems are managed by the provider, requiring little or no management interventions from the user. Cloud systems are highly available, and they are available across geographic locations also. So that makes it a fault tolerant system for any user. Suppose a user is uploading his app and he wants his app to be available throughout, then he can go for cloud based systems. The cloud systems are flexible in the sense that the user has to pay the amount for which he is using the resources. So these are some of the advantages of cloud computing.